Hi, my name is Ioannis Nicolaou, and I'm an associate professor here at Athens University of Economics and Business, Greece. I'm also editor-in-chief of the journal, International Journal of Selection and Assessment, a journal focusing in research in the fields of recruitment, selection, and assessment. I'm here today with my colleague and associate, Dr. Konstantina Georgiou, to talk about how technology has affected recruitment and selection, and more specifically, how gamification has developed the last few years as a new method, as a new tool, assisting HR managers during the recruitment and the selection process. Let me first start with introducing to you the concept of recruitment and selection. Recruitment and selection has been a significant, if not the most significant, HRM function. It's one of the main procedures an organization employs in order, if not the only one, in order to attract, recruit, and select candidates and future employees in an organization. It's also a function that has been traditionally viewed as relatively stable, and as a result has been viewed for many years from applicants as a straightforward and in many cases possibly boring procedure. A candidate used to apply for a job opening, used to complete an application form, or used to send her CV. Until very recently, this was a process that most of the companies worldwide would follow, especially for external hiring. Subsequently, the HR department of an organization, or possibly the manager, would screen through the different CVs and resumes and reject most of those candidates and invite a few more for a series of interviews. Possibly, if the company was one of those companies that used to implement more recent or more contemporary selection tools, then the candidate might go through a psychometric test, or possibly an assessment center, or any other different means that have been around, means of selection that have been around for many years. And this was the case for most companies, especially the large ones. But even small ones, small companies without an HR department would still follow the traditional mode of recruitment and selection. Traditional recruitment and selection cycle would go through these four different steps. A company would advertise a job opening. A company would try to attract suitable candidates, either internally or externally. Then, in the recruitment phase, the company would go through and screen the application forms or the CVs, would possibly initiate the first introductory selection methods in order to reject a large number of candidates and reduce them in a manageable number, in order for a small number of candidates, the so-called shortlisted applicants, to be invited for the main selection methods, a series of interviews, or possibly a more advantageous, or in many cases more expensive selection process such as an assessment center. And subsequently, the next stage, the next step in the recruitment and selection process would be the employee socialization phase, or also called onboarding, where the HR department or the organization would make sure that the newly recruited employee adapts herself in the new working environment. We are now going to focus on how technology has recently affected this recruitment selection cycle. We'll focus on the first three stages of the selection process: attraction, recruitment, and selection, but not on onboarding. Now, technology has had its major impact in the recruitment and selection um, process, even maybe 20 years ago, through the development and the extensive usage of the internet. And the internet-based recruitment appeared. We are all well aware of how job boards have appeared almost in every country, where a company advertises its job opening, and candidates go through those different job ads on job boards in order to uh, demonstrate their interest and possibly apply through the job board. Traditional job ads, such as the ones that used to appear for many years in newspapers, have probably been eliminated as a result of the extensive use of internet-based recruitment. Part of the internet-based recruitment, obviously, is the extensive use of social media or social networking websites. This type of recruitment method has been around for a few years, has been very effective, has been extensively used by practitioners, but we are still not very well aware of how useful, how valid and reliable this method is. Many studies have demonstrated that social networking websites are especially useful when you try to attract passive candidates, i.e. not active job seekers, not people looking actively for a job, but people who have a job and possibly might be interested in being attracted by a new employer. Especially social media such as LinkedIn have been used excessively. They demonstrate quite high usefulness, but still very limited research, even on LinkedIn, has demonstrated whether it's really useful and can possibly replace traditional recruitment methods. Now, following recruitment and assuming that the company has already enough information about their candidates, such as, for example, an application form or a CV, the next step in recruitment selection is screening, the stage where an employer would try to elicit additional information about the candidate above and beyond on what's included in her CV or in her application form. And here we have three major developments in the field. We have access to big data. We have access to a combination of different biographical information that can be provided via complex, in many cases, application tracking systems, and where an employer can, for example, search for additional information in a candidate's CV, combined with her LinkedIn or any other social media profiles, do an extensive keyword research in order to identify additional candidates possibly, or look for this candidate, for example, negative information on her social media, something we call cyber vetting. And a few studies have recently appeared about the usefulness of cyber vetting, demonstrating, for example, that even limited negative information can be perceived as very negative and does not have equal weight as positive information about the candidate. So be aware of the negative information shown about you on social media, such as Facebook, for example, or even LinkedIn. And more recently, we have seen the first few developments in the field of AI in recruitment and selection, where, for example, many of the traditionally methods that an HR associate, for example, would take care of, for example, such as CV screening, going through all this information, or resume storage, or parsing, can be carried out automatically. And this is where artificial intelligence comes in order to elicit useful information from the candidates, useful for the company, and to be used effectively. Obviously here, there's a big question mark whether all this information, as it is the case for the use of social media, for example, is meaningful and is really useful. The next and final slide introduces a few new selection methods. Konstantina later on will focus on gamification and games-based assessment, but this is not the only new selection method that has appeared as a result of the impact of technology in recruitment selection. What's of highly a very interesting new selection method that has been extensively used also as a result of the recent COVID-19 pandemic is the extensive use of asynchronous interviewing or digital interviewing, i.e. a selection method which there is no live interviewer on the other side of the table, and the candidate has to respond to a number of and record her responses to a number of questions shown to her, or a number of questions that the candidate watches on a video, maybe recorded by the interviewer. What's really interesting about digital interviewing, first of all, is that it's a method that it's perceived very negatively by candidates. Candidates do not like asynchronous interviewing. They certainly prefer a live interview with an interviewer where they will have the chance to talk with her and have a real conversation. But what's most interesting is that digital interviewing can be very effective and very can save a lot of time from employers. Everyone can be interviewed. Everyone who's applying can be interviewed. We are not yet there where all this information can be handled automatically. But there are a few companies out there which claim that they can analyze not only the content of the responses of the candidate, i.e. what she says, but also her non-verbal communication, or possibly things like her voice, her emotions, etc. Still, research lags behind quite a lot to identify whether this is really the case and whether this is really useful for recruiters. Another selection method that has been around for a few years, ever since technology has first had an impact on recruitment selection, is online testing. Online testing and computer adaptive testing have been around for many years, but the last few years have been used quite extensively for organizations. Almost every organization now uses online testing rather than the traditional paper and pencil procedure that used to be around until a few years ago. And last but not least, gamification, games-based assessment. Konstantina will introduce you the concept of gamification, games-based assessment, and we will also describe to you our recent research findings on this topic. Thank you for watching us. Konstantina, the floor is yours.